When ESPN dropped the bombshell about Sandy Brondello's shocking dismissal, it wasn't just another sports headline. It was an earthquake that rattled the entire WNBA to its core. How could a coach who had built the New York Liberty into a powerhouse, leading them to back-to-back finals, and finally delivering the championship fans had waited for, suddenly be pushed out the door? The disbelief wasn't confined to New York. It spread across the league like wildfire. It wasn't simply a firing. It was a message, one that exposed the ruthless realities behind the glittering lights of professional basketball. The firing wasn't about wins and losses, at least not in the way fans imagined. According to ESPN's explosive report, Liberty ownership had imposed an unforgiving standard, championship or bust. If Brondello hadn't won the title last year, she would have been gone then. That revelation sent shockwaves through the basketball world, because it meant her triumph didn't secure her job. It only postponed the inevitable. Imagine the pressure. Even perfection wasn't enough, and one stumble, no matter how small, meant the end. This wasn't ambition. This was obsession disguised as expectation. Fans couldn't wrap their heads around it. In any other sport, winning a championship buys years of security, prestige, and trust. But in New York, it meant nothing. Brondello had not only been fired after historic success, but also stripped of the credit she rightfully earned. The narrative from ownership twisted her legacy into a cruel ultimatum: win again immediately or get out. The idea of firing a coach after 2 finals runs and a championship seemed absurd, almost comical, but it was deadly serious. It revealed the unforgiving reality of Liberty management's vision for their team. What's worse, the so-called justification didn't add up. Brondello's playoff losses weren't even her fault. Key injuries derailed the Liberty's chances, leaving her powerless against forces no coach could control. She didn't lose the locker room. She didn't crumble under pressure, and she didn't fail in her strategy. She was betrayed by circumstances, and yet she paid the ultimate price. That cruel reality lit a firestorm of outrage. To punish her for things beyond her control was more than unfair. It was a dangerous precedent that shook the trust of every player and coach in the WNBA. For outsiders, the move looked calculated, almost sinister. ESPN journalist Alexa Filippo revealed that Liberty management might have been planning this all along, waiting for the smallest excuse to sever ties. Brondello's championship season didn't protect her. It simply delayed the execution. And that's where the story took a darker turn. If New York could discard the most successful coach in franchise history at her peak, then no one in the league was safe. Suddenly, a line had been crossed, exposing the Liberty's obsession with optics and control over loyalty and stability. The backlash was immediate. Fans flooded social media, venting their disbelief and rage. The comment sections, timeline, and forums lit up like wildfire, with countless voices demanding answers. How do you fire the winningest coach in your history? How can success be punished like failure? The outrage wasn't just emotional, it was logical. Most fans understood the grind of sports, the ups and downs, the way injuries shape outcomes. To them, Brondello was a hero, not a scapegoat. Yet Liberty ownership twisted her story, and the reaction from fans only deepened the sense of betrayal. In the midst of this storm, one voice rose above the rest: Becky Hammon, the championship-winning coach of the Las Vegas Aces, one of the most respected figures in the game, openly called out the Liberty's decision. She didn't mince words. She praised Brondello not only as an elite basketball mind, but as a rare leader who could connect with players on a human level. Hammon's defense was more than support. It was an indictment. If even she believed Brondello's firing was unjust, then the Liberty's motives weren't just questionable. They were indefensible. Hammon's statement carried weight because she knew what it took to build and sustain a champion. Her words didn't just offend Brondello. They exposed the Liberty's decision as reckless. Coaches across the WNBA were watching, and they were horrified. If Brondello wasn't safe, then who was? Excellence had been redefined, not as a shield, but as a moving target. No matter how much you achieved, it was never enough. Hammon's criticism ripped the mask off ownership's decision, showing it for what it really was: a power play dressed up as ambition. But the most devastating fallout wasn't in the media, it was in the locker room. Players who had trusted Brondello, who had bought into her system and her vision, were left reeling. Breanna Stewart, the superstar who had anchored the Liberty's championship run, had made her support for Brondello crystal clear. After the playoff loss, she said it plainly: "We've got Sandy's back." Those words weren't just empty talk. They were a declaration of loyalty. By firing Brondello, Liberty ownership ignored their star's voice, and in doing so, risked shattering the fragile trust between management and the team. That trust is everything. In the WNBA, where players are not just athletes but brands, icons, and business powerhouses, loyalty is currency. When management discards a coach who delivered it all, it tells players one chilling truth. Loyalty doesn't flow both ways. If Brondello could be removed after a championship season, what did that mean for the players? Their contract was short-term, their leverage was growing, and suddenly, their futures looked uncertain. The Liberty had crossed a line, and now their stars were left wondering whether they should stay or walk away. Breanna Stewart's situation became the clearest flashpoint. She had signed a one-year deal, a move designed to give her flexibility while testing the Liberty's commitment. But Brondello's firing sent a message Stewart couldn't ignore. If the coach she trusted could be tossed aside without warning, then what security did she have? Expansion teams were entering the league, hungry for star power, and Stewart suddenly had options. By betraying Brondello, Liberty ownership may have opened the door for their MVP to walk right out. And with her departure, the entire super team could unravel. Breanna Stewart role added another layer of intrigue. Marketed as the face of the franchise, she was supposed to be the centerpiece of New York's dynasty. But what happens when the foundation cracks? Watching Brondello's dismissal unfold, Breanna had every reason to question her own future. Was she really building something long-term in New York? Or was she just another piece in management's game? The silence from players like her spoke volumes. Sometimes silence isn't acceptance. It's doubt lingering in the shadows of a fractured locker room. And doubt spreads faster than any injury. The irony of the Liberty's gamble couldn't be clearer. By firing Brondello, they may have triggered the very collapse they feared most. The super team they had worked so hard to assemble, Stewart, Ionescu, and a cast of stars, now stood on shaky ground. Short-term contracts, shaken trust, and a fractured locker room created the perfect storm. Instead of building stability, ownership fueled chaos. The question wasn't just whether New York could win another championship. The question became whether they could even hold the team together through the next offseason. The stakes couldn't be higher. While fans raged and players reeled, rumors about replacements only deepened the scandal. Names like Dawn Staley were floated, but analysts quickly dismissed them. Staley, a college legend with financial security and prestige, had no reason to jump to a WNBA team that treated its championship coach like disposable goods. Even Becky Hammon's name was mentioned, but after she publicly defended Brondello, how could she possibly step into the very job created by her firing? Each rumor only highlighted the absurdity, exposing how little credibility Liberty ownership had left. Behind the scenes, whispers grew louder. Some believed the Liberty weren't even chasing coaching talent. They were chasing headlines. Speculation swirled that ownership wanted an NBA name, someone flashy enough to elevate the Liberty's brand on a global stage. But the cost of such a move was obvious. Would players respect a hire made for clout rather than credibility? Would fans accept it? Or would it backfire spectacularly, further eroding trust? The idea that optics mattered more than basketball only reinforced what critics had been saying all along. This wasn't about performance. It was about power. And that's where ESPN's revelations cut the deepest. The phrase championship or bust wasn't just a slogan. It was a mask hiding a systemic issue across the WNBA. Brondello's firing revealed a dirty secret. Loyalty and success mean nothing when ownership chases control. The truth was brutal. Even the best coaches were expendable, their futures tied not to their achievements but to management's shifting agendas. What happened in New York wasn't just about one team. It was a warning shot for the entire league. If Brondello wasn't safe, no one was. Think about the precedent this sets. If New York can discard a championship coach, what's stopping other franchises from doing the same? Smaller market teams, already struggling for credibility, might feel emboldened to follow suit, turning the WNBA into a league where fear rules instead of loyalty. Coaches would live on borrowed time. Players would sign contracts with one foot out the door, and fans would lose faith in the stability of the game they love. That's the dangerous domino effect Brondello's firing unleashed, and it's one the league may struggle to contain. For fans, the damage was personal. They had celebrated Brondello's triumph, believed in the Liberty's rise, and invested their hopes in a dynasty. But ownership's decision ripped that dream apart. Instead of celebrating stability, fans were confronted with dysfunction, politics, and betrayal. Social media became a battleground where frustration poured out in every post, every video, every comment. The Liberty didn't just fire a coach. They fractured their bond with the people who believed in them most. And once that trust is broken, it's nearly impossible to restore. The timing couldn't have been worse. The WNBA has been on a historic upswing, driven by rising stars, surging ratings, and unprecedented visibility. But this story dragged the conversation back into dysfunction, undermining all the progress. Instead of headlines about growth and success, the narrative became one of chaos and instability. ESPN's exposé didn't just expose New York's internal politics. It exposed the league's biggest weakness, a system that punishes loyalty and prioritizes control over fairness. That weakness could undermine everything the WNBA has fought to build. And yet, this story isn't finished. Because behind the outrage, the rumors, and the betrayal lies one unanswered question. What is the Liberty really chasing? If championships weren't enough to keep Brondello, then what was? Was it power? Optics? A narrative that only ownership believed in? Whatever the answer, the fallout is undeniable. The Liberty may have thought they were building a dynasty, but in the process, they may have created a scandal that could haunt them for years. And the league itself may never look the same again. Sandy Brondello's sudden dismissal wasn't just the end of a coaching era, it was the beginning of a reckoning. A reminder that in the WNBA, even champions aren't safe. ESPN's reporting peeled back the curtain, revealing the dirty secret that loyalty means little when ownership controls the game. For fans, players, and coaches alike, the message was clear: success isn't enough. And until that changes, the league risks alienating the very people who make it worth watching. This wasn't just a firing, it was a wake-up call for the entire WNBA.